hello, everyone, and welcome to my weekly Wednesday live chat. I come on live every Wednesday at noon Pacific to talk about art, creativity, and surface pattern design, and other topics that are super important for those of us who are online creative entrepreneurs. And I am excited to introduce you today to one of the incredible women who I've known for a really long time now, and who's in my mastermind and is a branding expert and is going to talk to us all about her incredible creative business. So, Monique, hello there.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
Oh my goodness. So we actually live in the same small town. So we could have done this side by side in real life, but I'm in my studio and Monique is also very busy. And so she is in her studio and we're incredibly excited to talk to you today. So let me say hello to a couple of people because you're going to recognize a lot of these names, Monique. So Maria Alzanier is here and Kelly Ronci is here. Hello, Kelly. It's great to see you. And Lynn Wiki is here. Also, Valerie Sims and Pauline Riley, Lorraine Mazzochi, I think that's how you pronounce your last name, and Janet Hild is here as well. So we are going to get started. And one of the things I wanted to mention is if you are on my email list, I send out a blog every Tuesday morning. And go ahead and check spam if you missed it, because of course it was all about Monique. And I'm going to let you know exactly where to go find it because you can go to my website. You see the name below and we're in what's called picture in picture, and then there's Anne LaFollette Art right down below. So if you put in AnneLaFolletteArt.com, you'll go to my website, and I'm going to go there right now so you can see it. This is a beautiful website and beautiful branding that Monique Johnson did for me. And we'll talk a little bit about our journey of working together and the amazing process that she takes you through. But just very, very briefly, if you missed the blog, go to AnneLaFolletteArt.com, click this red button in the upper right-hand corner, which will take you to the blog page. And then you can see this gorgeous picture of Monique right here, because I published this yesterday. And her blog is all about crafting your brand's visual story. And we're going to talk more about that. But if I click on the blog itself, you'll also note that inside the blog, there are several clickable links that we'll talk about because Monique has a brand new visual brand workshop that we're incredibly excited to talk about today. So let me bring Monique back on screen and let's get started by talking a little bit about your background, Monique, because you actually have a really, really interesting kind of origin story in terms of what you love to do as a kid.
Yeah, so I grew up in a very rural area in New York, and I used to. It's so crazy to think about this, but I used to ride my bike all around and sort of just explore the land. And I would just sort of make up these stories every time I found like a little piece of pottery or something that I dug up. I would make up these stories of like how they came to be, and I never thought that that would become part of like what I do for a living is like storytelling. And it's a far reach, but I definitely think that when you are growing up and the things that you do when you have no other distractions in the world are the things that you should be sharing with the world when you move into your career, right? So
Yeah,
that's kind
these
of
are things that are part of you. They're kind of part of your nature.
exactly.
Yeah, and so I love the fact that you sort of grew up in a rural area. You always loved the outdoors. You still love the outdoors.
Yep.
Monique also has a fantastic newsletter, and so if you get on her email list, you'll learn more about what she likes to do in her free time, and more about her family, and also what she's working on right now in terms of big client projects. So, one of the things we wanted to dive into a little bit more is you really have this unique ability to kind of pull out of your clients their story or their, why they're doing what they're doing. And we did this together. It was
Yep.
probably 4 years ago now, when I had done a very poor job of putting a website together myself and wanted to up level it so that it would look really pro. And I had a more complex business that I also needed to be able to communicate through my website. So, talk a little bit about what you remember from that process, because it was so much fun. And then I'll tell you what I remember.
Yeah, it's I always love, I think it's so important to, especially when you're doing branding for small business owners in particular, to really get to know the person. And like, every person has a story behind them, right? It's like not just the business they're running, but what makes them unique, and what is their background, where did they live, where did they come from, where they go to school, whatever. Do they have kids? What do they like to do in their extra time? All of these things make up the person behind the company. So I really think it's super important to, really get to know each client. And many times I become friends with them because I love them. And really get to know them and kind of like just dive into all the facets about their life. And, sometimes people are like, well, why do you need to know that? And it really fuels their visual brand. All these little things that they may think doesn't have any significance ends up being part of their visual brand. And so it's just, it is really important to like, through interviews and intake forms and meeting with the person and really having a good understanding of like who they are, it really helps to develop their visual brand. So
Yeah, and I think one of the things that was super fun that's part of your process is you encourage us to create a Pinterest board
of course,
and
yeah.
to pull imagery and to pull colors or just images. It's kind of like doing a vision board or a mood board, but you're
For sure.
doing it in a place that's going to be very easy for us to both see. And you pulled some of them and I pulled some of them. And what was fascinating about that process, because I've done mood boards for service pattern designs when I'm creating a collection.
Yeah.
And it's super helpful to have that physical board where I can see, where am I going and what is this collection going to be all about. But with you, it was really more about, what do I see in my, what do I see and what are my experiences? And so we pulled a lot of fabulous art from France, or beautiful little sketches, or a cute little tank top that I love that was just in blue and white, and lots
Yeah.
of other kind of images that really helped you, again, understand more about my background, especially my having lived in France as a kid and how important that is to me. But also, it really helped you come up with every single component around the
Yes.
around.
Yep.
So
And
talk more about
pretty
that.
much every project that I work on, I start the same way. Whether it's I'm only doing a logo or I'm doing a full brand with a website and everything, I start the same way every time. And it's really because like over the years I've developed this process that really helps me understand not just the person behind the company, but what is their aesthetic? Like what do they like? For you, there was a lot of, like the beautiful, paintings or the French Impressionists, or things just about your life that like you had put on the board, or you might even have shared random things with me that I was like, I know she's not going to put this on the board, but I'm going to put it on the board because they all collectively tell me about the things that you like. I remember on your board having some like beautiful, like sunset, beachy kind of scenes, and but a lot of like French related imagery and inspiration. Remember that doorknob, the French doorknob that was on there? And so when I start a project, I kind of seed the Pinterest board a little bit, just putting in some things that I think maybe the person will like, just to kind of get them going. But I really ask them to keep an open mind when they're adding things to their board. Don't feel limited, like, oh, I have to think business terms. It's like, keep everything really open. And, it's like, you like a shirt, you like someone else's website, you like this piece of art, you like a typeface, anything at all that you like, you dump it on the board. And to this day, when if I am revisiting a client's, like if I'm doing a project for them, a marketing project for them, to this day, the first thing that I do before I do any marketing design, I go to their board and I just refresh my memory of, like, okay, these are the things that they love. And that it's just sort of a reminder of, like, what their whole story is. Because I'm such a visual person, it's almost like rereading a bio or something. But it's just in a visual term, and it helps me every single time. And I do it to this day. I continue to look at people's Pinterest boards as I'm working on their projects, because it really just paints the picture in my mind and kind of gets me in the right mindset of, like, I know all the visual things that we came up with for your brand. There's lots of beautiful hand lettering or watercolor textures, and that can be very different than a project that it maybe worked on the previous day, which was, for a lawyer or something.
Right. Right.
So it really helps to get me in the mindset of, that particular project and that entrepreneur or that person. So.
Yeah. So, talk a little bit about how you've picked your niche, because you have a very specific target audience that you love to work with. And talk a little bit about who that is, because it's everybody who's
Yeah.
here. It's everybody who's here watching or who's going to be watching the replay, because it's all about like art, and creativity. But talk a little bit about how you kind of honed in on that niche.
Yeah, and it was honestly, I can't say that it was a very organic process. Like, it wasn't that I said, I'm going to go after these people. It just naturally happened. And I actually think that is the best way to find your niche, is just letting it happen, like, organically. And so for me, it's mostly female entrepreneurs, small business owners that are either, starting out from the beginning, or, they maybe have been working, like in your case, you had been working for a year or so. And then you were like, I'm ready now for branding. And so it's really that's kind of my niche. But the particular industries, it definitely is a range, but a lot of them are artists like you. Or, like, like the health industry, beauty industry. I kind of stay away from tech these days, 'cause that's a whole other world. I can do it, but I just always come back to the people that are, you know um, just more creative. And it may not be in, like, creative in like a visual way, but just creative in their thinking or the way that they run their business. So anyway, I hope that helps
Yeah,
clarify
that
a little bit more.
that's yeah, that's super helpful. So anyone who's out there who's interested in elevating their brand or hasn't even gotten started with their branding, you want to go to designwithmojo.com, which is Monique's website. So, before we talk about this fabulous workshop that you now have available for people, which is kind of a wonderful first step for them, can you talk a little bit about one of the things that I get asked a lot is, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a creative entrepreneur. And being an entrepreneur is not the easiest thing in the world. There's sort of a lot of mindset that you need. There's a lot of sort of help that you need to manage overwhelm, because there's so many different things we always need to be working on. So talk a little bit about how you manage the process of being not only an incredible entrepreneur, but you have two boys who are in middle school and
High
just
school.
and high school, right? You're married, you live in Mill Valley, you love the outdoors, and so
Yeah.
one of the things I encourage everyone in my community is when you're building a business, you got to make sure it's going to work for your life, not that you have to work for the business, that your life works for the business. But talk a little bit about just how you manage all of the different balls you have in the air.
Yeah, no, totally. It's definitely a trick and a half for sure. I'm not going to lie. Anyone tells you that it's easy is not telling you the truth. But both of my kids are in high school now, which is crazy. But yeah, I think it's really, and it took me a long time to figure out a schedule that works for me. So as you mentioned, I love the outdoors, and I find that for me personally, if I don't do some kind of exercise, and not every day, but as much as I can in the morning, then I'm just kind of like antsy or anxious and in the rest of the day. So for me, I like to kind of get up and do some kind of exercise, and then I'm like ready for the day. So I try not to book calls that in the morning, because I know that that's when I'm going to try to do some kind of exercise. Generally speaking, that's kind of like, if you had to put a layer on my calendar, that's a very general comment. But really, I try to chunk like tasks together. So, meaning, like, if I have to do three random proposals, and then I'll just say, okay, I'm going to do this on, Wednesday afternoon. And I just work on all of those at the same time, so that I'm in the mindset of that particular kind of task. If it's more of a design, if I'm just starting out on a new design project, I have discovered over time that I really need to leave mental space for myself. I can't take on too many projects at once, or I get overwhelmed. So I know that, if I can handle probably, five or six like projects at a time. But just kind of knowing your I don't want to say limitations, but like, where does that cross the line for you? It's
Yeah,
like, just, those boundaries, I guess, is the right
yeah,
word.
yeah,
Figuring out what those boundaries are, and then chunking similar things together really makes a huge difference for me. I'm definitely could be better at it, but I have a very um, like loose guidelines that I follow for myself, because I find that if I make them too tight and narrow, that doesn't work either for me.
yeah.
Um, so anyway, hopefully that
Yeah,
answers.
yeah. No, I love that answer because I think that there are two components. One is making sure that you're not starting your day too early, your work day too early, that you have space for yourself, for getting everybody organized in the family and the kids off to high
Exactly.
school, and also getting some exercise when you can, and then also bucketing things in like tasks so that you're kind of get in the zone. And then the third
Exactly.
thing is that when we're working on something creative, we do need a lot of space. We need a little ramp up space. We need a little space while we're doing the creative tasks, and we also need some time afterwards to kind of come back
Yes,
into the real world, because you get in flow. As often as possible we
totally.
get in flow, and so I think those are really, really great recommendations. And you've been in my mastermind, and one of the things you mentioned to me about the mastermind was that it has allowed you to work to really sort of zoom out and work on your business more this past year, as opposed to being
Yes.
in it all the time. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that, and did that provide you with the space to develop this workshop, for example, that we'll talk about next?
Yes, yes. So definitely being in the mastermind, it gave me community, like a place, like if I had a random question, about being a bit something related to being a business owner. I felt it was so nice to feel like I could just go to the community, and someone would have an answer or reference or resource or an opinion. So that was great. I love that part about the mastermind. And then also accountability, just not in a pressure in a bad way, but just if we had spoken about accomplishing a certain goal or something, and then meeting again soon, like in a month or whatever, I'd feel like I really want to have it done by then. So like that was a great space to just feel like you have accountability and the community part of it for sure. And what else did you ask me?
So just you have been running a business for quite some time,
Oh, yeah.
and
Oh,
often you don't have any time to think about,
yes.
well, what am I doing with this business, or
Yes.
how do I want to grow this business, or
Yeah.
some
No,
of
it's
those
true.
questions.
Yeah. So, basically, you know, it is so first it's funny. I mean, it's not funny, but when I do branding as a business, right? Like that's what I do. But then when it comes to taking the time and branding myself, it suddenly is like, whoa, what? It's almost like an out of body experience. Like, what? I don't have the time to do this. I'm not paying myself to do this. But it was a few years ago that I said, treat my company like a client. Just pretend it's not me, and just pretend that it's one of the other projects that you have. And so it allowed me, just that mental shift allowed me to say it's okay to work on your own stuff, right? And the mastermind really like pushed me into, not pushed me, but it really like gave me a little bump in the butt to really dig deeper into my business and the things that I could be doing better or adding on or enhancing. um, it really helped me to get a perspective more on my overall sales funnel, and what are the pieces that are working and are not working, and how can I just make everything better. And so this year alone, I mean, I've done so much work on my own brand that, like, more, I've been in business for 16 years, and this year I've done the most work that I've ever done in my own business. Just like crazy to think about. But it's all been great because I feel like I'm finally really have all the pieces of the puzzle like are starting to fit together. And it's just, yeah, it's been a great experience. And I think also the lead into me developing my own class has 100% been inspired by being in the mastermind and like seeing what other students are doing, and all not just all the pieces that need to happen, but from like a larger perspective. I feel like my class is the culmination of all these ideas in my head that I've had for years. So it's almost like a catharsis of like getting all this stuff out of my head and sharing it with other people that they can actually do by themselves, not just hiring me to do it, but they can do these things on their own. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
been
and I think that the one of the great things about it is that it's been giving you the opportunity to also realize how many amazing assets you already have, and how to then leverage those assets so that you can, I think all of us want to serve our audience. We want to provide them with great resources. We want to help them make progress in on their own creative journey. And so
yeah,
you've been able to create this incredible new workshop that allows people to kind of dip their toe into branding, to
yeah,
understand really the mechanisms behind branding. And I'm going to let you talk more about the workshop itself, but it's a new way for you to serve your audience,
yes,
educate your audience, and get them more sort of in tune with the importance of branding, what's involved in branding, and take those first steps. So it's called the talk a little bit about it while I go back to my website to show everybody exactly where to find it. Go to my website and click on the red blog button. hold on a second. I'm going to click on the red blog button. We're then going to click on this Mojo's or the whole article that I did about Monique. And then if you come back down here, there's a fabulous visual brand workshop. And I'm going to bring this on screen so you can see. If you click on the visual brand workshop, it'll take you directly to where Monique talks about it. And you can also join her email by clicking on her free How to Create an Elevator Pitch. So talk to us a little bit about, while I have this on screen, talk to us a little bit about the visual brand workshop.
Yeah. So again, it was really I mean, it's sort of my behind the scenes method or philosophies that I use for every single project that I work on. And, again, it was like developed over many, many years of time and experience. But I tried to make it very, things don't need to be complicated. I think when you don't when you don't know about a certain topic, it's easy to feel overwhelmed about it. But like that's how I feel about things in general. And I assume that someone that doesn't know about branding, they can feel really overwhelmed. Like, you know what? Oh, I heard this about that, and I heard this about that, and it just can get really just too much. So I try to just make it very simple and break things down into sort of chunks of information that guide small business owners through kind of developing their own look and feel. Um, so really, that's the very overarching 2 cents about it.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
And you
but
actually
it,
had a sense, you had an opportunity to actually do the workshop virtually with
yes,
a very special group that you and I are still a part of, which is called the
yep,
Hivery. So, talk a
yep.
little bit about what the people who went through it had to say and what that experience was like.
Yeah, well, I was very fortunate to do the workshop for the Hivery, which is a women's entrepreneurial group. So it's basically my perfect target audience, right?
Yes.
And yeah, I loved doing it because I knew it was going to be useful for people. And just a lot of the people in there just said it had such great nuggets of information, and it was excellent class. And that there's an accompanying workshop worksheet that goes with the workshop. And so a lot of people like downloaded the worksheet, and they could take notes while they were doing the workshop, which is really useful because a lot of times you're like watching all this information, and then you're like scrambling all these notes down, but the worksheet really guides you through, and just kind of allows you to collect the information but in an organized manner, so you don't have these like random notes in your notebook.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but it's really for small business owners maybe that are just starting out, that don't have a huge budget but want to be proud of their brand, not be embarrassed of like sending someone to their website and it looks like Rookieville. I want to help people feel confident about their brand, because when they feel good about what they're putting forth into the world, people are more inclined to hire someone like that. They feel good about what they're doing and how they're presenting themselves. And then that confidence comes through and it attracts more clients and more people. So more customers. So that's also kind of another lesson I talk a little bit about creating trustworthiness and a credible brand that, people feel like, oh, they really know what they're doing. I better hire them. um,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was also just incredible to support you through the process of kind of getting the workshop ready as a packaged program on your website, and how to provide the information that people need to see if it's the right thing for them. And so I'm going to go back to the actual enrollment page. And of course, one of the things that should surprise no one is that it's gorgeous, right? So the enrollment page is absolutely stunning. You guys see that on screen right now. It's called the Visual Brand Workshop: Transform Your Small Business, Gain the Confidence to Create Your Own Visual Narrative. So you can click this black button if you're ready to enroll. But I'm going to also scroll down a little bit so that you can see just how gorgeous this is, and the fact that, Monique talks about the struggle is real, right? That you're either embarrassed to send your customers to your website, or you just don't yet have a budget to hire somebody, a professional branding expert, or you're also, you're trying to do templates from whatever website you're trying to build your website on, and the templates don't really work for you. So for all of those reasons, it is the perfect place for you to get started. And I think you did a really beautiful job of also talking about, who the class is perfect for. It's your target audience, which is small business owners. And you talk about the various things that we as small business owners really want to become better at, whether that's understanding the power of strategic branding, or the fact that we really do want to take ourselves seriously and we're committed to building a meaningful brand. And visual presentation is really what almost everything is about today, right? Everybody is interested in seeing things visually, learning visually, and creating their own authentic story that comes through their website. So you can also talk just a little bit about what the class is about. So I
Yeah,
know you talked a little bit about this already, but go through again, like, what is branding and how
yeah,
do I
yeah.
create effective branding?
Exactly. So it's basically I wanted to keep it short too, so that it doesn't feel like this big long burden of a class, right? It's just very succinct. But basically it's broken down into three modules. The first one is really just like clarifying like what branding is, because I do feel like there's kind of a lot of myths or misconceptions as to what branding is. And so I go through what that means, and then I kind of give some examples. And then the next chapter is, I'm like reminding myself now. The next chapter is, why is branding so important? And it talks about, establishing a trustworthy and a credible brand, so that when people see, that you're confident, they are more inclined to hire you. And then the last piece is really where all the exercises and tips and resources happen. So I actually recommend that people like watch the class in full and then go back to that third piece and kind of like take more time, because that's where all the exercises are. But basically, it breaks down in very high level chunks, um the elements of a brand that make up a brand: the fonts, color palette, and photography style. Like, I've broken it down into those basic buckets.
Yep.
Of
Yep.
course, you can have a much more complex brand that has all these other elements, but at the end of the day, those are kind of the three main things that really make up the visual brand. And so I have just like a bunch of exercises in there on recommendations on, over, with my experience and expertise, like these are things that I have found like over the years that really can just help others, in choosing fonts or colors, and making them meaningful. Like, why are you choosing those colors? Why are you choosing those fonts or this photography style? Like, what is it conveying to your audience? And is that the right message that you want to convey? So it just, that's like really high level, but that basically
That
is overview.
Perfect. That's absolutely perfect. And as you were talking, I was scrolling down. I know you can't actually see what I'm doing,
Yeah.
but I was scrolling basically through the enrollment page and we went to the 3 modules. And one of the key things also in that third module that you mentioned is you refer everyone to free resources for
Yes.
fonts and for
Yep.
color palettes and things like that. And you
Yep.
also have a really great workbook. So everybody gets both the workshop recording, but also where the modules are, but also they get this incredible workbook so that they can fill that out as they go through it, or they can fill it out when they're really diving into module 3.
Yep. And I think by nature, I grew up with three sisters and like big Italian family. So I always have been a very like kind of scrappy personality. Like I don't think that you need to spend a ton of money on something in order for it to look good. You just have to know what to do. So, one of the elements, like throughout that third module, is really sharing resources that I find valuable. Like I use them, I use all the resources in there to this day. I have been using them for many years and I still use them. I just want to share that with people because I think there's probably more that people can do on their own than they think. And so this class is really just to give them the guidance. So they're not just like, it's just everything is so overwhelming, but just really, really lead them through. But there's one sheet in there that has like kind of all the resources on it at once. And it's just I think it's very valuable because it's just like everything in like a nutshell, it's just, those are my favorite resources. So,
Yeah, they're just fantastic. And one of the things I wanted to also mention that really kind of ties a lot of this together is when you and I were working together and we went through your step-by-step process, getting started with the Pinterest board and then our meetings around kind of what we wanted how to incorporate a lot of my background into and my personal experiences into the brand. I was just this was the most amazing thing that happened. So you presented a color palette and there were 5 colors on the color palette and you had given them names. And it's probably going to make me cry. It's probably going to make me cry again because it was so incredible. Because the colors that you picked all had associations with some portion of my background. So one of them was eucalyptus, which is this beautiful green that we use. So if I go back to my website and we go to just to the cover page, because you can see basically pretty much all the colors in on the website. So the bar at the top that you see there, which is my freebie, that green is the eucalyptus green, which is absolutely beautiful, and it's called eucalyptus. And that was my mom. My mom passed away in 2019, but that was her favorite scent, her favorite tree in the backyard, her favorite scent. Not necessarily her favorite color, but green's always been my favorite color. And so eucalyptus was just perfect to be part of my brand colors. Then the red you called it crimson. And I went to Harvard, and Harvard Crimson is the name of the newspaper, and red is the color of Harvard. And so, yeah, I don't think you even knew that I don't even know if
I
that came up.
did.
Right? I don't think that even came up in our conversations, but somehow you knew, right? Somehow you totally, totally knew. And then a lot of this beautiful imagery, we talked about both photography and other elements that we use in the brand came up. There's also a really beautiful blue, which is a little different than the blue you guys are seeing on screen. And in fact, Monique, I need your help to make sure that when I'm doing this type of a live broadcast that it becomes my blue. But you called it cornflower blue. And cornflowers, I grew up in Corning. I was born in Corning, New York. And Corning, New York is that you guys, all of you who are of a certain age, and you maybe even now because your parents or grandparents probably have given you some of this, they have a huge kitchenwares line called Corel, and it has
Yes.
3 cornflowers as the logo that are in a cornflower blue, and you would recognize it right away. It's white ceramic that can go in the microwave in the oven. You can freeze it. It's like this incredible ceramic that was developed in the 50s, and their logo is 3 little flat cornflowers, and so that was the name that you gave to the blue. And so, anyway, it was just like incredible how the whole process came together. And I'm so incredibly grateful because I love my branding and I feel like it's so me. And I was able to really lean into your incredible expertise to showcase me in the best possible way as I continue to on my entrepreneurial journey.
Thank you for saying all that. And one thing I wanted to add, because I think it was a huge inspiration, was the fact that you grew up, I mean, you were born in New York, but you grew up really in Paris. And that was just like, we have to work this in somehow, right?
Yeah,
So
and
it,
that's
it came together as doing the logo in hand lettering, that which I
yep,
did.
yep.
And yeah, it was just like a beautiful uh culmination of all these elements together that makes your brand completely unique and completely representative of who you are.
Yeah,
So
and so I went back just to the lead page so you can see Anne LaFollette. So this is actually Monique's handwriting, this beautiful handwritten Anne LaFollette here. This is a little watercolor flower that I had done, like, oh my gosh, back in 2015 probably. But showed you a whole bunch of my work, and so you pulled
yeah.
that out as part of it. And then of course we also have a whole bunch of different versions of the logo. I love the round one that you all see when you get my email on Tuesday morning. It's at the top of the page. It's the round little one that still has that handwriting in it. So all of the different kind of components of my journey so far are represented in my branding, which I'm so grateful for. And I want to encourage everyone to get started on your own branding. And that's why I really wanted to feature Monique today, because she's created this incredible resource. It's only $47. You can find it by going to designwithmojo.com, or you can find it by going to annlafolletteart.com/blog, and you'll see Monique's blog with the links to the page that I walked you through. But what would you say, Monique, as we close out? What would you encourage people to do to get started? And obviously, would love them to take the workshop. But what is the biggest sort of piece of advice you have for people when they're just either nervous about it or they feel they're not ready?
I really have to go back to this same, I know we talked about it already, but I just always go back to um creating, because I think a lot of probably most people in your audience are very visual people. And so I have to go back to the Pinterest board thing and just creating a very high level board of things that you love, and don't limit yourself. And a lot of times, like I tell people, add things to the board that you love and then get some space from it, maybe a couple of days, come back to it, and you start seeing patterns appearing, like, oh wow, I didn't realize that I like pink so much, or I keep seeing a serif font popping up over and over again. And it's so when you have like your creative session, take some space from it and then come back to it, maybe add some more, and make sure that in when you take the space away from it, it allows you to evaluate it in like a different way. So that usually those are the things that I pull out of someone's board, and then I want to incorporate those into their brand. So I would just say, starting out with the Pinterest board,
Yep.
and like, forget about anything you've ever done. It's like, start a new one. Don't add to an existing one. Start new and fresh, and just create a board that is super high level, and there all the things that you love.
Fantastic. That is great advice. So, Monique, thank you so much for joining me. When I hit finish on the recording, you and I will still be in the green room together. And
Okay.
so don't go anywhere. But thank you so much. And listen, if you guys have questions, I've seen a lot of, oh my gosh, it looks amazing. Janet Hild said it was called Corel ware, right? The Corning ware I was talking about. And there's lots of wonderful comments in there, but if you also have questions, please put them in the chat, right? Put them, you can either watch the replay or just add them into the chat, because Monique will go watch the replay, and if there are any questions embedded there that I missed, she'll make sure she answers them for you.
For sure. Thank
Awesome. And
you
so what I
so
love
much.
to do is I love to always so here, let me pull up a couple of fabulous comments. So we've got Kelly. Does this come up if I'm in here? It does. Yes. Looks great, Monique. And then we also have Rebecca Love saying great session and that wonderful inspiration. Sally Dutton, it's lovely to see you. And then it's wonderful to see my dear friend Mila Brown. I haven't seen you for ages, and I know you've started to follow me recently, and I so appreciate it. So I always like to say in closing that I am Anne LaFollette, and it's never too late to create. And Monique, thank you so much for joining me. I will be back again next week. Bye for now, everybody. Thank you, Monique.
Thank you.